So the other topic related to hunting that I want to talk about concerns trophy hunting. So trophy hunting is, I think, a somewhat complex topic, and it really depends on the species and whatever else. So first off, I'll start with talking about wolves a little bit. So I did a big research project or a paper a long time ago in one of my classes on wolf reintroduction program in the U.S. And so that was sponsored by I don't know if it's the Fish and Wildlife. Um, I can't remember exactly what government institution that sponsored it, but basically the idea behind it was, or the philosophy was, um, wolves are really beneficial to the environment and the ecosystem because they balance the ecosystem and they keep species that would get overpopulated like deer and elk and whatever else. They keep those in check and they keep those populations healthy, which I think is true, which I think there's a lot of evidence to support that. Particularly, there was a study in Yellowstone that was done a while ago, and for the longest time there was no beavers there, and the aspen trees were dying out, right? And so one of the reasons was because the elk populations were growing to unhealthy numbers, and what they were doing is they were choking up the rivers and destroying the riverbanks, so beavers couldn't create dams and they couldn't create a life for themselves in these rivers. The other thing was that the elk were decimating the aspen tree populations and they were eating the young saplings, and so the aspen trees weren't being allowed to grow to be fully fledged trees. And there was no wolves to chase the elk or hunt them, and so these elk would just hang out by these rivers and they would just hang out in these big groups. So when they introduced the wolves back in the Yellowstone, they started hunting elk right away, naturally. And what happened was the elk just were a lot more skittish. They became more dispersed. Their populations started going down quite a bit, and the population of the wolves started growing very, very quickly. And so the elk started having, or over time, had healthier populations, and also the riverbanks um, started coming back on these rivers, and the beavers started coming back and damming these rivers, and then these aspen trees started growing up into full trees, and so the aspen started coming back, and then these birds that specifically nested in aspen trees started coming back. There was a lot more effects than just that. I think the entire tributaries and the rivers and the streams just became a lot healthier in a sense too. I don't know exactly in what other ways, but it was a very comprehensive effect that bringing the wolves back into Yellowstone and in some of these northern states, overall has had a positive effect. So that being said, there are some different diseases that some of these wolves are carrying now, especially as their populations get unhealthy. So that's not good either. And the other thing is that wolves directly compete with humans for land and for resources and and for livestock, and so um, it's a complex issue. I think around the turn of the 19th century, I think it was a program under Woodrow Wilson. I'd have to look it up, but basically there was a government-sponsored program to eradicate the wolves in the United States and get rid of them. So hunters and trappers, I think, were paid a fee for wolf skins, and so there was really a race to just kill them all. And I think a lot of trappers used strychnine to poison the wolves. They tried to do the same thing with coyotes, but apparently that was unsuccessful because the coyotes' population actually starts to increase as you kill them off. But that's kind of a different topic. But yeah, so the wolves were pretty much taken out. They reintroduced them. It was the reintroduction program that started in the 90s has been a resounding success. Now the wolf populations have really grown, and now they're at the point where there are wolf populations that are unhealthy, and some of these wolves can carry diseases, and they can that spread in between packs, but they can also carry diseases that, if they bite a person or they bite some livestock, I think they can transfer to livestock or herd animals. And so there needs to be a way to keep these populations healthy as well. Um, and so I know now that some of these northern states have controlled hunts, which I think is probably overall a good thing. And I know a lot of people think that, oh, well, the wolves and the bears and these things on top of the food chain, and they're very majestic, beautiful animals, and they're sacred and all that, and I think there's some truth to that. They are sacred and they are beautiful animals, and they're very essential to food chains and entire ecosystems, really. But also, um, they need to be balanced out too. And so the truth is that the human population has grown so much, and one might even argue that we're at an unhealthy population. But I think the general consensus is that we're everyone's pretty much a pro person, and so we can't just eradicate people. That's pretty messed up. So we're all here. We're here to stay. Our population is very, very large, and guess what? We're part of the ecosystems. We are part of the chain and the web of life, and we directly compete with other animals for resources, namely predators and carnivores, right? And so there's ranchers and there's farmers all over the place now, especially in the west and the northwest where the wolves are, and and um, and so they're directly competing for land. So when the wolves see livestock and they get on these ranches and they see this really easy prey and these lambs or calves or whatever it is, that's easy pickings for them. Of course, they're going to go for it. And I think farmers pretty much have a legal right now where if they see a wolf, they can shoot on sight, and that's fair enough. But so it's kind of a mixed bag. Yes, the wolves are very valuable and important for the ecosystem, but if their population gets out of control, then they can spread diseases, and they also directly compete for ranchers and humans for land and for food. And obviously, you need to protect ranchers' investment and need to protect their livestock. The other thing is wolves will eat people. They will stalk people, especially kids. They will eat them. They have no qualms. If they see someone who's out in the middle of the woods and there's no one else around, if you don't have a gun out there, you don't have a way to protect yourselves, that's your ass. The wolves will take you down. I think they're a lot less skittish than even like a cougar. Cougars typically don't attack or hunt people, although there was a weird case over in I think near Seattle where someone got stalked by a rabid or a diseased cougar, and one person was killed. There's two people on bicycles, so that was pretty weird. But that's really an anomaly. I think wolves, they'll stalk people and they'll hunt them and they'll kill them. They'll eat them. And I don't have any problem with that. So on that note, if you're ever out hunting or you're hiking deep in the woods and you're just in a small group or just by yourself, think ahead. Bring bear spray or even bring a handgun and make sure it's a high capacity handgun, 14, 15 rounds. And, some people might be against guns. Like, I just want to go to nature because nature's beautiful and it's lovely and all that. Nature is the most amazing place, and we're a part of nature, and it's absolutely vital for our spirit and our soul and our energy, but it's also a deadly place. And there are predators out there that will have no problem with getting a cheap free meal if the opportunity presents itself. So that being said, trophy hunting overall is an interesting thing. I'm personally not. I'm personally I'm not really interested in killing predators. Anything on the top of the food chain, mainly because I don't want to eat it. I know the meat for a lot of predators on top of the food chain isn't the best, especially wolves. I've had some bear that was decent, but bears for the most part are omnivores. They kind of eat a lot of different things. In fact, some bears are almost strictly herbivores. Um, I know a lot of Alaskan bears, they eat tons of berries, and some of them just pretty much salmon and berries. But they don't do as much hunting, whereas wolves are almost entirely carnivore. Um, and so, but that's just me personally. If someone wants to hunt a bear, hunt a wolf, and it's a legal hunt, and it's a way to manage manage the population that's getting unhealthy, and it's sponsored by the state or whatever, or approved by the state, then fine. Just be safe about it, and try and do it in a way that alleviates or eliminates suffering as much as possible. And then when it comes to herd animals like elk or deer, my personal philosophy is that I won't go for trophy animals like the big bucks that are in their prime or big elk that are in their prime. If someone wants to do that, fine, but I just don't really see the point. I think it makes more sense to go for an older animal or a younger animal, because that's more natural. That's what a predator would do, is they would go for they wouldn't go for something at their prime, the prime bucks or the prime elk. I think they need to get the opportunity to spread their seed and compete and mate with other females. And then once they get older, they're young, they're still not quite in the mating pool yet, and so it makes more sense to me to go for an animal like that. And then you have stories like the trophy hunts in Africa and things like that. And I just think there's a lot of misinformation about that kind of stuff. I mean, I was just reading about the Cecil lion hunt that happened a few years ago, where that dentist got a lot of shit for. But like, you read that he didn't even know that the lion was a big park attraction, and he signed all his documents to do a legal hunt. And it sounds like his guide or the people he's with might have been baiting the lion a little bit, or trying to get it out of the park or something. May or may not be true. But those kind of hunts have been going on for a long time. And one thing that they do, these trophy hunts in Africa, is they bring in a lot of outside money into these parks, and they help to maintain a healthy population in these parks in Africa. And they also bring in a lot of money for infrastructure and to pay some of these rangers. And so I think that can help reduce the actual poaching and the illegal hunts, because you're bringing in money from the outside for the legal hunts. So it's really a mixed bag. I mean, I don't ever want to shoot an elephant. I have no interest in that. I don't ever want to shoot a lion. I think lions are really cool, and I just don't think I'd get much out of it. I'd rather just see them in the wild and take pictures of them, or go on a safari or something, or just watch cool YouTube videos of lions eating wildebeest or something like that. That's more my bag. But if someone wants to go over there and spend $50,000 and do a legal hunt that's sponsored by the country or the national park, and they approve it, and it's a way to keep the population there healthy, and it's a way for them to bring a bunch of money to maintain the ecosystem in a healthy way over there, then I don't really see an issue with that. So you always have to look at these things on balance. And I think people get overly emotional about things that they don't fully understand all the time. And there's always more things at play, right? There's always more information that needs to be sought out. And so a lot of times, when the way the media portrays, or like these TV shows will portray a certain issue like that, you're always gonna get extremes. And the media likes to play on our emotions, and they like to get us emotional about a lot of these issues on one side or the other. I don't care what political side you're on, or what economic side you're on, or what you believe or don't believe, but the media has a vested interest in getting us emotional about these issues, so we clickbait, so we go back to these things, and then the advertisers get thrown in our face, and that's a way for advertisers to sell things. So don't be just so naive. Realize that media companies have a vested interest in keeping us watching, and they know how to push our emotional buttons and our emotional triggers, so we keep watching, so their advertisers can get paid. It's a business model. So be informed, read up, read all sides of things. And when it comes to hunting, it's an amazing thing if it's done right and it's done with respect. It's an absolutely amazing experience that anyone can do. And it's a way to put some high quality meat on your table, and it can be very empowering. And so on that note, I'm going to sign off. If anybody has any questions or comments about anything, or you enjoyed my video and my rant, give me a like or send me a comment. And if it's not too mean, I might comment back later.